This is the ER channel, Empires and Revolution. Today, I want to explain why the British Empire is no longer with us, leaving its faint traces in the Commonwealth and the depleted power of the United Kingdom. There's a common meme on the internet that Britain destroyed itself by its participation in 2 world wars. According to this thesis, Britain, by opposing the Kaiser's Germany and then Hitler's Nazi Germany, effectively depleted its power in a pointless struggle to save the world for democracy. This is a laughable and self-contradictory thesis, because an empire is not a democracy, and a democracy can't truly be an empire. Also, it's pretty obvious that the British Empire was well on its way to dissolution before either World War I or World War II, 2 wars that the British Empire actually won. No, the British Empire wasn't destroyed by winning a couple of major wars. What destroyed the British Empire were ideological and political processes. Now, these processes were egalitarian in nature and centrifugal in effect. The British Empire was plagued throughout its existence by the weakness at the centre. The essential mechanism of the British Empire and the key to its success was to avoid serious conflicts with equivalent powers, like France, for example. Of course, Britain did fight wars with France, but in general, it fought them on the seas and in remote colonies, which it could reach more easily than the French. Also, it fought against underdeveloped nations. It colonized areas populated by relatively primitive people. This allowed the British Empire to quickly spread and become enormous. But the drawback in this imperial mechanism was that the British Empire was far-flung by nature. This first became a serious problem when the American colonies broke away for relatively trivial reasons. But rather than rising to the challenge and creating an imperial ideology which could overcome this drawback, Britain instead went with the flow. And in the period of the 19th and 20th century, the flow was very much towards egalitarianism and a centrifugal devolution of power. As early as 1867, we can see the British Empire effectively abdicating as an empire through granting its Canadian colonies Dominion status. Now, Dominion status, for those who don't know, is effective independence. From 1867, the only thing that tied Canada to the rest of the British Empire were emotional ties of kinship and culture. Over time, these increasingly weakened, and Canada increasingly became a fully independent nation. The same process occurred in Australia and New Zealand. Round about the time of the Boer War, in gratitude for Australian and New Zealand service in that war, the British Empire granted those colonies Dominion status as well. Immediately, Australia and New Zealand started to diverge from Britain and achieve greater and greater independence. It was inevitable. A few years after the Boer War, Britain also gave South Africa Dominion status. That set South Africa on the road to total independence. Now, all of these countries rallied to the support of Britain in World War I, but that was actually entirely voluntary. They could have chosen not to do so. Now, the largest part of the British Empire, in terms of population at least, was India. India became independent soon after World War II, leading many people to conclude that World War II effectively created Indian independence. This is a misapprehension. Indian independence had roots going back long before World War II. An important reference point here is the Government of India Act 1935. Although this stopped short of granting India dominion status, it was very much seen as a step on the same road. It granted a large measure of autonomy to the provinces of India, established the foundation of the Federation of India, and introduced direct elections involving an electorate of 35 million Indians. From 1935 onwards, therefore, India was increasingly a pseudo-self-governing state. It was only the intervention of World War II that reasserted central British power, and in doing so helped to escalate the end of that power. So it's quite clear from all this that even without World War I and World War II, the British Empire would have peacefully dissolved into a number of increasingly independent and divergent nations. The most that Britain could hope to hold on to were those relatively easy to defend isolated island states dotted around the world. But even here, there was a distinct lack of ideological willingness to maintain British dominion.